Clemson's wide receiver room just got even deeper with Gordon Sellars now on the board. We'll talk about that and so much more on a Friday edition of Locked On Clemson.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer of Locked On Clemson, this show, and part-time host and producer over on 105.5 and 97.5 FM, The Roar, Clemson's flagship station. Thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if you're new to the show, welcome. And be sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss an episode. But I'm due you one more. Don't hit the like and subscribe button if you don't like it, but I guarantee you're going to like the show. We're going to talk a ton about Clemson football this afternoon. You know how we do it here on Locked On. If you've missed any episodes, you can go back because we do exclusive Clemson content Monday through Friday every single week. And don't forget to follow me between episodes over on X at The Morgan T Show, where we can talk about all things you want to talk about when it comes to Clemson or, flying, because I like to fly as well. But today we've got a ton of content, especially looking at specifically how Clemson landed the wide receiver that we talked about yesterday. They landed Gordon Sellars, and now the wide receiver group that is coming in for 2026 is even more loaded. And honestly, you got to be even more excited because the room is back to championship level. It's already, in my opinion, there at playoff and championship level depth. It's the deepest group that Dabo Swinney's had since 2018, and he is just continuing to reload and replace guys eventually down the road for 2026. If you look at the commits right now, Clemson, according to 24/7 Sports, is the number 2 overall ranked team in the recruiting rankings for 2026, number 2. And they have 14 overall commits. If you look at the 4-star guys that they have, the top, handful of guys that they have right now, it's not defensive lineman, defensive end, safety, cornerback, and then maybe a quarterback here and there, or maybe a running back or something like that. No, what we're seeing right now is a little bit of a shift to a heavy success on the offensive side of the ball. And I'm here for it. You're here for it. And I'm really excited about it because, I've talked about this for years now. It feels like Clemson really kind of fell off on the offensive side of the ball when it comes to recruiting. And now we're seeing they're kind of getting back to what we remember, which there was a point where Dabo Swinney was recruiting on the offensive side as great as he was on the defensive side. I don't think the defense has really fallen off that bad at all, but the offense definitely had. And now they're getting back to a point where they're landing big time guys. Hey, you got Chancellor Barclay, inside offensive lineman, a 4-star guy. He's number 1 on the list right now. Connor Salmon, he is wide receiver, super fast guy, 6'1", 190 out of Maryland. He's number 2. Naeem Burrows, wide receiver, 5'11", another fast guy. He's number 3. Then you have Caden Gebhardt. I'll throw in a defensive guy for you. He's a safety. He's from Ohio. We pulled him from Ohio State. See you later, Buckeyes. And then you have Gordon Sellars, a guy that they just added today. So you're talking about the top guys in this class right now stacked on the offensive side of the ball. Who would have thought that would be the case right now? And we have had a lot of criticism in the past over Tyler Grisham and how his recruiting has been because, when he took over originally it was like, it was like from Jeff Scott, it was like, well, the guys weren't really performing well. They had 4-star guys, they had 5-star guys, and they really weren't doing well. And a lot of people blame that on Tyler Grisham. But I would say a lot of those guys were that Jeff Scott last year, couple of guys that really didn't pan out. And nobody really gave Jeff Scott a lot of flack for that. They always said, oh, we want Jeff Scott back. But I really think, when you're looking at Tyler Grisham now and what he's been able to do to kind of settle in, can you not say that he's one of the better wide receiver recruiters in the country right now at the level that he's doing? All right, so he just got Gordon Sellars, 4-star guy out of Charlotte, committed to Clemson today over South Carolina, big win. Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, big win. And he's the 3rd wide receiver in this class, adding length to the team, athleticism to this group. I guess not to the team yet, but while Dabo Swinney has praised just the effort that they've been doing, not only on this team, but in the recruiting trail, I'm really looking forward to what we're seeing here. I know I've kind of hinted it all week that I feel like Clemson is slowly climbing back up the hill to get to that wide receiver U label. And this is just another reason why I think, to add to the belief that this is actually happening. We see what's going on with the transfer portal and adding Tristan Smith into the mix. We see what they're doing with the guys right now. And there's even some sleeper guys I'm going to talk about maybe in segment 2 when it comes to wide receiver U. But I mean, you got to like what you're seeing, because 2026 is going to be that year where you're getting your last year with the best guys you have right now. These guys are going to come in and be freshmen, kind of learn underneath them and really spark from the beginning, in their sophomore year, or maybe if they're just so good that you can't keep them off the bench in their freshman year in 2026. But either way, you have to be excited about what Clemson has done here. They already had Burrows and Salmon. Now they add 6'3", 6'4" guy in Sellars. And depending on where you look at, but he is a leaper. He can win on third down. He can win in the red zone. I told you this already, but I love how he gets separation. I just don't understand, how he can do it. But when you watch his film, it's like he always has 3 or 4 yards off of the guy. I don't understand it really, but he's got that talent to be able to get that first step, to run the route to where he can separate himself from the defender, who, even if they're trying to be on his hip, they can't. It's just very difficult. So pretty exciting news there from Charlotte, because I know it's been difficult for Clemson to be able to pull in guys from Providence Day and also pull in guys from Charlotte. Over the years, they typically end up going somewhere bigger, or maybe wanting a lot of money, or maybe wanting to go to South Carolina. It's not truly a Clemson area. And so to be able to pull a guy from there is huge for me when it comes to adding a pipeline in that high school and in that area. So great job to Tyler Grisham and Dabo Swinney there. Huge news coming out of Clemson. Very, very exciting. And then it kind of just builds up to me, because I can't go on without talking about Tristan Smith and how he had a great spring and he had a breakout performance, at the spring game. And Dabo Swinney came out recently and said, they actually forced plays to Tristan Smith because they wanted to build his confidence and get him ready and show them that, hey, that they believe in him and that he belongs in a Power 4 conference school, and he could potentially be in the rotation, not only in the rotation, but be a starter. And I say mission accomplished with that. If that was your goal, to force his hand, to give him opportunities, give him plenty of opportunities in the spring game, you definitely did that, and it worked out really well. But I'll tell you another thing too that we're not talking about, that I think that we will eventually when it comes to in the fall. Maybe we won't hear about it much anymore right now in the off season, but in the fall, I feel like that I just have this kind of like gut feeling that Tyler Brown is going to come back, and he is going to just light it up in the scene, in the national football scene and in college football. I think that he's an underrated star. I think that people have forgotten about him. He had a decent spring, and Dabo Swinney has praised his consistency, praised his explosiveness, his reliability. And he's another one of those guys that has that. I wouldn't say he's super fast as far as like top end speed, but he has route running speed. There's something about him that he also can get separation in the middle of his route. Maybe not at the end of his route, maybe not at the very beginning, right off the hike or off the line. But there's something about Tyler Brown that gets separation there. So when I'm talking about Gordon Sellars and what he can do, it starts to make me remember Tyler Brown, because we missed him all last season. Really, we didn't get anything from Tyler Brown because of his injury. He can be extremely dangerous, and nobody is going to talk about him. And because they have so many other weapons to have to worry about, you're not going to be able to double team anybody in this group. And it's going to expose a lot of poor defenses, a lot of defenses who are undisciplined and unathletic, at least to the level of Clemson. I think this is going to be big for sure. I know that we've been jaded a lot with wide receivers over the years, but I think that is beyond us now. I really do think that we are building towards a wide receiver U if we're not already there. You have to be able to have wide receivers to get mismatches and get open in space. And Clemson went through a lull there where it really wasn't available. But now they have 5, 6 guys that you can trust to do that. And when these guys move on, you've got 3 more guys already on the board that you're going to be able to replace them with that have the speed and have the ability to get the separation from what we're seeing already. I love this ability to have confidence in what you're building here on the wide receiver group. I love the flexibility that this gives to Garrett Riley and him being able to open up his playbook even more. And now his 3rd season with Clemson. I really don't think that there needs to be any additional pieces for 2025. I think the room is ready to go. I think they're ready to make it to the playoffs and to be one of the best wide receiver groups in the country to face from the beginning LSU all the way through South Carolina and then into the postseason. I'm looking forward to it. I'm hyped. Landing Gordon Sellars just hyped me up even more. Hopefully you are as well. Hopefully you feel the same way about this wide receiver group. But hats off to Tyler Grisham, golf clap, if you will, for this, because, he's gone through a lot of ups and downs, and he's been able to kind of fight through and show and build exactly what he wants. And this group looks really, really good and is exciting. I got another guy that I want to talk about that nobody really is talking about, and I do think that he can add something to this Clemson offense that we haven't really had since Wayne Gallman, and we'll talk about it right after this. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed. As easily as you stream your favorite shows, this gaming is gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV stick. With Wi-Fi 6 and 6E and new auto low latency mode, advanced technology, Fire TV Stick 4K delivers smoother, more responsive gameplay with lightning fast speeds so you can stay competitive. And believe me, you know how it is when you're out there gaming. You know how I am when I do Flight Simulator, when I'm doing Call of Duty. You have to be sure to have low latency, and that's why it's so important. So go with the Fire TV Stick. Head over to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On and get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller is required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st Gen and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Listen, I think that you can't win a championship without a bruiser running back. Maybe I'm crazy in saying this. I don't think I am, but Clemson has a bruiser running back that we know about. Now, not a lot of the casuals will know about it. The national media won't know about it. But you and I, fans of Locked On Clemson, fans of Clemson, we know exactly who Clemson has to be that tone setter, to be that bruiser, to be that kind of mix of a Wayne Gallman, maybe even more of that. And to be honest with you, he even has a nickname to go along with it, but we just never talk about him. And maybe there's some of that frustration that comes from me because they didn't use him as much as I would like to have seen him be used in 2024. But in Dabo's post-spring press conference, I lit up when he started talking about Keith Adams Jr. And he reminded us that his nickname is Hammerhead. And he reminded us about how unique he is as a running back and how he punishes defenders. And you leave walking away after you even if you may have tackled him, you leave walking away with a bunch of bruises because of how much he hits you, how hard he hits you. I think that Dabo Swinney is growing in trust into him. Hopefully, CJ Spiller is growing his trust with him as well, because I think that you need to have a bruiser guy. whether you use him on third down, whether you use him in the red zone situation, we know the method that we did last season is not possible. They should not do that again. They should not go through a whole season where they're running just one running back the entire time, and then he gets banged up and he's playing at 60%, and then he's not taking on blocks like Phil Maffa and what happened with him. You can't do that. I don't want them to do that again. I was very frustrated with what they did last season. And you have Keith Adams Jr. here. He could be possibly the most underrated player on Clemson's offense because of his ability to just destroy defenses and really make it hurt. And if he gets just hard yardage here and there, maybe it's not a huge chunks, but maybe it's just hard yardage that really beats you up. It's going to make those defenders and those edge defenders and those interior guys think twice about the next play. You know, they're going to want to take a play off because, man, their shoulder hurts, their arms hurt, maybe their legs, their knees hurt. You know, the thing is, when you beat up the defense, you beat up that defensive line, it wears them down over time, and you'll be able to rotate your own guys to keep them healthy. So you beat up their guys and you keep your guys healthy. Why wouldn't you do that? So in my opinion, I say, let's go with Keith Adams Jr. a little more in 2025. I do feel like that he could be a great piece in the short yardage situation, in red zone. He gives you that bruiser that you're not going to get the bruiser from Jarvis Green. You're not getting the bruiser from Jay Haynes. You may get a little bit of it from Gideon Davidson and Adam Randall. But to me, Keith Adams brings you that raw power that those guys, don't have. Now, he doesn't have some of the talent that they have. He doesn't have some of the explosiveness that those guys have or the speed that those guys have. But when you need to move a pile, wouldn't you call on Keith Adams Jr. to do that? He would finish runs with violence. They don't call him Hammerhead for no reason. Dabo is starting again to embrace him a little more. You're hearing more about him in the post-game press conferences. You're hearing more about him after practice. You're hearing about, how much trust they have in him. So I feel like you're going to see him more. Maybe I'm wrong here, but to me, everything is setting up to where, why wouldn't they use him more? It'll help the running back room be more balanced. It'll help keep the defense on their toes and not be able to scheme against one or two guys because they're going to get rotated a bunch, and it's going to keep them healthy and fresh. Keith Adams gives the running back group a little bit of, attitude. And I feel like that's what you need. Now, I'm not saying use him all the time. No. I'm not saying that at all. I feel like that there's a rotation. And I don't think that Keith Adams Jr. really gets talked about in the rotation at all. The rotation that I hear on social media and even personally that I say to myself is, you Adam Randall, number 1. And then you have Easy Amume, number 2. And then you'd have Gideon Davidson coming in at number 3. And that's not ranking them. So don't twist my words here. I'm not ranking these guys at all by saying 1, 2, or 3. But I am feeling like that's going to be your rotation, however that rotation works out. But why not add in Keith Adams Jr. there? I think he brings enough talent and enough skill set to be able to be impactful during a football game and not just in mop-up time. He isn't super, explosive off the snap. He's not going to be your lead back. That's for sure. But he didn't have to be your lead back. Short yardage situations with a guy like this, to me, that leads to things being automatic. Maybe you're not doing the tush push like they're doing in Philadelphia, but why wouldn't you put Hammerhead in there and give him the opportunity to knock somebody over? We've used defensive linemen here and there on short yardage like Peter Woods and other guys that we've used, Christian Wilkins in the past. But it's like sometimes that gets a little too gimmicky. And I understand that it's like it hypes up the fan base and it gets the crowd going. But why not use a guy that is truly a running back and that is actually a bruiser, and you brag about him every single week about how he's, quote, Hammerhead. From Wayne Gallman to Travis Etienne, Clemson's always had somebody who, can be physical enough, but I think Keith Adams can definitely fit some sliver of a mold of those two guys. You see it in the SEC, you see it in other teams in the ACC. When it gets down to November, everybody's going to be banged up. Everybody's going to be hurt. Why not have this guy in there and rotate him and let him bang up the other team a little more? It's not a flashy pick. I get it, but he could be your finisher. And in the backfield that has a lot of potential, has a lot of talent, has a lot of speed, has a lot of dynamic ability from catching, running and catching. To me, Keith Adams can get in that mix, and he doesn't have to sit on the sideline and do nothing. He can get in that mix and be your bruiser when you need him in specific situations. And I think it'll be pivotal for Clemson to get back into the postseason and possibly go into the national championship game if they keep this rotation up. To me, I say don't go through a whole nother season where you only use one or two guys. I don't want to see that again at all. No. So, all right. We're going to finish up the show talking about Dabo Swinney and his final thoughts from, or some of his additional thoughts from the spring and Clemson's depth. Dabo Swinney is not one for big guarantees, but I think if everyone stays healthy, I'm going to go ahead and give you a guarantee. This roster is exactly the roster that you need to get to the postseason. This is the roster that you need to get deep into the postseason. If this team stays healthy and they continue to grow together like that we've seen from the spring, we saw from last season getting to the playoffs, and they need a little bit of help to get into the playoffs last season. They made some mistakes. They stubbed their toes against some of the best teams last season. But to me, I think if everyone stays healthy and they continue to grow, they're not going to stub their toe against the best teams. They're going to beat those best teams on their roster. They're going to beat Florida State. That's going to be completely different. They're going to beat Syracuse. They're going to beat SMU again. They're going to beat LSU and South Carolina. If everybody stays healthy, I'm going to give you a guarantee that Dabo wouldn't give you a guarantee. I think they're going to go to the playoffs again if they stay healthy. This could be one of the most competitive all-around teams that Clemson has had in a few years. And after the spring game, Dabo talked about how this team was business-like. And I love that because business is open, man. Let's get out there and let's do our job and let's cash those checks because there's multiple starters that are returning. I mean, this team is not going to be one that you're going to have to look at the program to figure out who's who. You already know majority of the guys. And if you didn't know any of them, you probably saw them in the spring, light it up as well. From Walker Parks to Peter Woods, Clemson is stacked with veteran presence and leadership. Clemson has a bunch of new guys, a couple of new guys to supplement as well. They are, to me, one of the most poised teams in the country. They should be one of the most depth teams in the country, and they could be dominant on both sides of the ball with Tom Allen adding in to the mix and these transfer portal guys that are enhancing the defense and the offense. Clemson fans may not need to feel like it's just hype, and I don't think it's just hype. I really don't. I know that we're still sitting here April 18th, and it's hard to kind of believe anything that talking heads like me say or that the coaches say about how good teams are or not going to be, because they do still have to play the games. And I get it. You're probably saying, Morgan, we talked about accountability last year. We talked about being a complete team last year, but we still lost to South Carolina and Georgia and Louisville and all the most difficult teams we lost to. But while this is a lot of the same players, I don't think this is the same team. To me, the chemistry is better. The staff is more experienced. You have Cade Klubnik, Tyler Brown, as I mentioned earlier, Peter Woods, Tristan Smith, as I mentioned. Also, you've got guys that are coming in and ready to take it to that final step, take it over the hump, get back to the top of the mountain. The depth is real to me, especially on the offensive line. You got a ton of guys that we're seeing that are actually competing, not just talking about them competing, but they're actually competing. You feel more confident about your quarterback room now. It wasn't just Cade Klubnik and no one else. You feel more confident about your running back group because it's not just, Gideon Davidson and no one else, and that being a true freshman. You really do feel like, at least I feel like, that they have a ton of guys there. What about wide receivers? I mean, there's no doubt there too. And you have a couple of tight ends that you can trust as well as OPH and Bentoncourt and some other guys that can get in the mix. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they've added in the right guys. They've added in Ben Boulware. They've added in Tom Allen and a few transfer guys to really stack up this team to be able to be a absolute wall in the red zone. The tackling has gotten better. The energy is off the charts. Key guys are coming out and saying that this is the best they've ever felt when it comes to practice because, just the energy and accountability and the preciseness and the execution that Tom Allen is bringing and the expectations, the structure that is coming, that has been added to Clemson with Tom Allen is showing up immediately and instantly. As instantly as we saw with Matt Luke, you're seeing that on the defensive side of the ball. Add in those transfer portal guys like Will Helt and Jeremiah Alexander and Tristan Smith on the offensive side. This is the same team, but not the same team, right? There's a little bit of difference there because of these additions. And I think this is one of the most dangerous teams that Dabo Swinney has had in maybe 5 years. It's crazy to think that we were on such a great run and then COVID hit and a lot of things started to miss. But Dabo is a great coach. He's a great recruiter. He puts the best staff around him, and he knows when to make changes. And I think that he's made the right changes. I think he has the right staff, and he's starting to build something back to where it was before. And unless there's another pandemic, I think he's going to be able to carry this one on even further because of what we're looking at with this roster. Now, to me, this is kind of your last hurrah for Cade Klubnik. We talked about it yesterday, last hurrah for Joey Batson, but it's the last hurrah for Cade Klubnik because he's going to be done after this. So your leader on the offense wants to do everything in his power to have the best season possible. Cade Klubnik is a winner. Cade Klubnik is a guy, he's a competitor, he's a gamer. Does he always make the right decision? No, but he's going to test the boundaries, the limitations. And I think you need that a little bit. You need that gunslinger mentality here and there to be able to keep testing it. And he got more confident in running the ball last season. So he's going to be a threat with his legs as well. So I think that, in the modern college football world, the teams that can, and in the NIL and transfer portal era, really, the teams that can retain their talent, is Clemson one of those teams? Yes. The teams that can build on their depth and develop guys, Clemson may be one of the few teams that still focuses on that. There's a lot of teams out there that just would rather go and be a free agent, replenish, every single season. But Clemson is not that way. And just adding in this new wrinkle of filling just a little bit of gaps here and there with the transfer portal, Clemson has done all three things that I think that anybody would list in this age of modern college football that you need to do to win at the highest level. They're doing that, and we talked about this week as well on a previous episode, that they're doing that, but also maintaining the culture that they have. Now, I know there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot to go in the spring. You've got summer workouts as well, and you've got fall camp that's going to be huge, and I can't wait to get there and see how fall camp goes as well. But as we get into the fall, as we go through the summer, if this team continues to stay healthy, if the guys that are out that are on the starting lineup get back to 100% and get ready for August, I wouldn't be surprised if this team doesn't make another run to the ACC championship game, doesn't make another run to the college football playoffs, and this time maybe even be a team that gets a first round bye in the postseason. So I'm excited for it. I think there's a lot to be excited for on the football side of things. Dabo Swinney has done the right things, and his coaching staff like Tyler Grisham are doing the right things to continue to build this team into a positive direction. And really, it all started with me reflecting on the fact that they landed the 4-star wide receiver Gordon Sellars from Charlotte. The more you see Clemson have success on the recruiting trail, I think it's going to continue to pay dividends year in and year out, and it's going to be really, really exciting to see. Well, thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen today. I really appreciate it. And at the end of the week, thank you so much all week for tuning in. If you haven't already, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. If you like this video, hopefully you did. If you like the podcast, hopefully you're already subscribed. But for your second listen of this weekend, check out Locked On NFL Draft with Damon Parson and Keith Sanchez. Your favorite collegiate players are getting ready to go to the next level. Get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, that's the end of the week. I appreciate everyone as well. Hopefully you have a good Friday and a happy Easter. And remember the reason for this weekend. And as always, Tiger fans, we'll see you at the top of the hill.